So today, thank you for joining us. We are here to experiment with nonverbal communication in meetings and develop our nonverbal vocabulary. Hi, Sharon. Nice to see you. So by the end, ideally, you will have ideas about when and how to intentionally use nonverbal communication. You'll have some different ways of spotting nonverbal communication or the need for it, and maybe some new vocabulary you can bring into some of your meetings. The responsible parties for today's event are Miriam and me, and mostly Miriam, but we'll take turns playing with this. It's completely experimental. And then of course you. So this is definitely a participation required event. If you are thinking that you got to show up and like kick back and just watch other people, you will be sadly disappointed. You are in the wrong room. And in fact, one of the things we ask in these experimental free workshops is feedback. So because you may at some point feel compelled to go elsewhere, go ahead and click that link right now. That's a feedback link. And at the end of the session, or whenever it is that you happen to be elsewhere and ready to provide feedback, have it open in a tab so it's sitting there and you won't forget. So Miriam, before we get started, do you want to tell a little bit about your background and why you wanted to do this session?
Yeah. So you just mentioned experimentation. I think that's the common thread in my background, because I started with experimenting in chemistry and physics, doing research. Then I took it to the newspaper to do experiments with different ways of telling stories, doing data visualization. And now the last year I'm experimenting more with like coaching tools and workshop facilitation. And in my free time, I do a lot of dance improvisation, which is like also a big experimentation journey. So I'm now trying to take these elements and bring them into this workshops and meeting world.
Super fun. And then we want to get to know, we're going to start with an exercise that's a breakout exercise. Rachel, do you think you'll be able to participate if it's a spoken breakout? Or should we give you a couple minutes and talk a little slower? Rachel says she's in transit.
We could also take a couple minutes to look around you in your space and see if you have a little room to move later. Possibly get up from your chair or wherever you are sitting and see if you have a little room to move more than just your hand. And yeah, that's cool. I see Helen's moving. She knows where she's at. Yeah, yes,
very cool.
Explore the space where you can move. Like, what's your range of motion? How close can you get? How far away can you get?
I could get really close.
How far left can you go? How far right can you go?
And still be in.
And still be in your sort of camera. Hello.
All right, very fun.
Yeah.
So that's about, just sort of establish what are your options there. And I'm curious in terms of nonverbal communication. I've got a quick poll, and I would be interested to hear, how many of you, is this your first time in one of these events and we've just made you run around in your camera?
What is MIC?
The MIC. Okay, so that is the great question. The MIC is the Meeting Innovation Community, and we are hosting this particular event. We host experimental workshops related to meeting performance across a range of topics every month. So I'm going to go ahead and give that just a couple seconds left. And 3, 2, 1. Go ahead and end that poll. Share the results. Look at this, first timers, some folks who have been here quite a bit. Hi, Rabia, how are you? And some folks who are brand new. Excellent. All right. So in terms of non-verbal communication, there are a whole bunch of things we can do. Now, obviously, because we've been experimenting with how far we are away from things, using our visible surface in the camera is one of the ways in which we can all communicate. So I'm curious, we've used the poll to catch feedback quickly. I'm also curious to know sort of what time of day it is for all of us. We're an international group. So if, for those of you who can have your camera on, if the bottom of your frame is when you wake up in the morning, and the top of your frame is when you go to bed, where are you in your day? So for me, I would normally be asleep still. It's about, Helen, where are you? It's super early for you. No, this is end. Top is bedtime. This is wake up time, and then you get.
It's not. I must be in the wrong place. So, my camera's here. So, I don't. Where am I putting my hand? I'm in Dublin, Ireland, so I'm halfway through.
There, so probably about forehead level.
Oh, okay.
Like yeah, yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Right. So one of the things, so you can use these kinds of techniques, right? Like using where you are in the camera, saying, hey, if are you bright wide awake? If so, leave your camera on. If not, anybody who's not quite wide awake, go ahead and hide. And everybody can do that all at the same time.
So I had my self view turned off, and I think that's why I couldn't follow your instruction, because I don't like looking at myself on the screen when I'm talking to other people.
That's a fabulous tip. So turning off self view does make these kinds of activities harder. And probably for today, and normally we would recommend that. Normally I would recommend turning off your self view, because looking at yourself is like having a mirror behind the screen at all times, which is highly distracting. For anybody who doesn't know that tip, you can do it by covering on your face in the video panel, and in the top right corner there are 3 dots. One of the options on the 3 dots is hide self view. And if you've done that, in the top right corner of the whole screen on view, there's an option that says show self view, so that you can see where your hands are in today's experiment. But let's experiment with a different way to uncover unspoken perspectives. So one of the reasons we want to use nonverbal communication is because there are too many people in the room. So not everybody can speak at once, right? So polls are great for that. Things that are visual are great for that. One of the other reasons we want to do it is because people don't always feel comfortable speaking in front of a group. So we're going to break you into breakouts. And Rachel, I'm going to just put you in a group of 3 as an observer. And here's the instruction. In your breakout, I want you to interview each other. I'm going to put the questions in the chat. In your group, find out from your partner what their name is, how you pronounce it, their favorite band or artist growing up, why they're here, and what gift they bring to this group, so that we can all help achieve our purposes well together. When you come back, you will be introducing your partner. So if you've got a piece of paper and you can write some of these things down, that will help you do a good job with that. Any questions about what's going to happen? Okay, have fun. Welcome back, welcome back. All right, so we are going to take turns introducing our partners. And I actually use this specific exercise in some of my corporate workshops because people have trouble sometimes talking about how awesome they are. So we make it a little easier by having somebody else do it for them. So the other thing you can do if you have a big long group like this is you can take some of the pressure off or put pressure on by making sure this goes quickly, right? Because it can be really boring to listen to a whole bunch of introductions. So to help us keep ourselves concise, we have a script available to follow as you introduce your partner there in the chat. You feel free to go ahead and improv a little bit, but I want you to keep your introduction to under 30 seconds. So, and Miriam and I will go ahead and demo first. And then once we're done, I'll introduce her, she'll introduce me, and then she's going to pass it to another group that hasn't gone yet. So you have to pay attention to see who's gone before so that you can do the passing. And we will get this whole thing done. Let's see, how many of us are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in 4 minutes. I'm going to set a timer. So we're going to beat the clock. No more than 30 seconds each. Are we ready? Everybody? All right, I'll start. Hey, everybody, I'd like to introduce Miriam. Miriam's favorite band growing up, when she finally got around to enjoying a favorite band, was Bryan Adams, because of his fabulous song for the Robin Hood movie. Today, Miriam is really interested in learning and experimenting. This is a whole new aspect of facilitation for her. And the gift that Miriam brings to this workshop is some experience with improv dance.
So there's someone in the waiting room for you.
Got it.
And in the meantime, I introduce Elise Keith, who's meeting Mavin. Her favorite band, when she got around to having a favorite band in 7th grade, was Midnight Oil. Let's see, what's the script? And today, Elise wants to find out if there's a business tie-in for dance improv elements to create better business meetings. And her special gift is that she's a master at clicking very quickly on Zoom buttons. And with this, I will pass it on to Xiaoyu Wu and her partner.
Hi, everyone. So I would like to introduce Helen, whose favorite band growing up is the Bay City Rollers. And she wants to set up her own coaching business, and she wants to learn more about coaching online. And her gift is that she could tell us more about hypnosis, which is related to her own business that she's trying to set up. Thank you.
I'd like to introduce you to Xiaoyu. She is here to, she is here today because she is curious to know what's going on and what Miriam's involved in. She finds Miriam very interesting and inspiring, so she's curious. And the gift that she's bringing today is that she could teach us all Mandarin. And now I'd like to hand over to Sharon.
Thank you, Helen. And so Rabea was my partner, and she's hailing all the way from Georgia, and she is well caffeinated on a very good coffee, from what I understand. And her favorite band, when she was younger, was Def Leppard. And what she wants to achieve here is to find tools that can help her circle back to the group as a whole. And so everything is wonderful and copacetic together. Is that about right? And I think that's it. Yes, that's it. I don't think I forgot anything.
Thank you. So I would like to introduce Sharon Lee. Sharon Lee's bands, favorite bands growing up were many, but some of them were Frank Zappa and the Stones and Wilson Pickett. Today, she wants to stay open to what happens, and the special gift she brings is a neurodivergent perspective.
Wonderful. And I believe Trisha and Rachel were both not yet ready to participate when we did that last one. Is that correct? Okay. Is fabulous. So I am curious, Trisha and Rachel, quick favorite bands, or anybody else who had a...
Yeah, I'm going to go with collected oldies on stacks of parents' CDs.
And I'll have to credit, hard choice between ABBA and Rod Stewart, but I think ABBA, all courtesy of listening to my father, sing those songs late at night.
Awesome, very fun. So I'm curious. So that was, we did it. We hit our time, barely, but we did. We hit our time. And what was your impression of that particular exercise? So on a scale of 0 to 5, with 0 being I hated every second of that, never do that again, please, dear Lord, to 5, jazz hands, that was fun, with 3 being yeah, fine, whatever. How did you feel about that particular activity? I want to see your fist to 5 on a countdown of all at the same time. 3, 2, 1. Show me your fist to 5. 4s, 3s, 2s. All right, great. So Sharon, can you tell me a little bit about what made that a 2 for you, if you're willing, and you don't have to?
Yeah. No. It's one thing that I'm, what does he say? You can't say about me is not enough information. It was good. It was rushed. And so it's a different thing. And whenever I'm in workshops where they're rushed, and as a neurodivergent, there's this anxiety, not anxiety, that's way too heavy of a word, but it's like unnecessary rushing of people. And so I don't want to compare it to what I do, but one of the things that I build in and things that I prefer are the ones that have more time built into it. Voila. But it was good for what it was. It was good for what it was, but it's difficult on neurodivergent a little bit of my time.
You're right. That's super useful. So, so we've done a couple of things here, right? So we've got people to speak for each other. We've surfaced feedback non-verbally. And when you do that, you have an opportunity to say, okay, for people who have divergence in that feedback, what can we learn from that? Instead of having to ask whoever's loudest or whoever wants to speak first, we can get at the perspective that we actually need to hear, right? So Xiao Yu, you were double fists. What was your feedback there?
I just find it very nice, the idea of introducing other people, because I often find in meetings, certain people speak more than others. And I think this way it sort of make everyone equal, and I just think everybody will spend equal amount of time talking. That's a really nice thing about meeting. So we don't have the situation where someone just dominate the whole meeting. So I think this is a really clever way of doing that. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, and certainly when I do this in my professional workshops, I love to pair the newest hire with the CEO, and have the newest hire ask the CEO what their favorite band was growing up as a kid. Right? It's a very equalizing kind of moment because they're all human. All right. So I have one last question for you. And then I'm going to just show you a couple things, and then I'm going to turn it over. So we've used nonverbal communication in a number of ways. I am curious, for those of you who facilitate or who work with clients, what are some other ways? And we'll do this in the chat. Bingo, yet another nonverbal communication opportunity that you have used nonverbal communication.
I'm sorry, did you say we write it in the chat?
Yes, please. Yeah. What are some other ways you have intentionally used non-verbal communication? Nice. I see head nods and drawing. I love those. Oh, Helen, well spotted. Just changing the name in Zoom. Winking, like with your physical eyes. Very cool. So this using the chat, using drawing, covers and reveals. Beyond being nonverbal, another way to think about this is you're changing the conversational interface, right? So a conversation can happen a number of ways. They don't all have to be with our mouths and our ears. And I'm going to drop some links for you into the chat. I would recommend we look at these later, but they're going to be there as a resource for you. There are a whole ton of formalized non-verbal hand signals or communication vocabularies. I'll show you just one of them. If it's okay, I'll share my screen for just 1 minute. And then we're going to turn it over and we're going to play with some other things. So for example, I want to speak. How do you make that very, very clear? I would like to build on that. No, thank you. Now, signals like this only work in a group where you have established this vocabulary, right? People have to be trained. They have to model it. You have to show them that this means no, and this means talk to me. So if you're working with a group over time and is a large enough group, this is an option for you. Let's explore some other potential ways to build nonverbal vocabularies. Miriam?
Yes, certainly. Yeah. So as you say, you can agree on science, but then you have to practice learning the language. And what we are going to explore now is basically starting from scratch and finding what brings us together, I think. Are there commonalities? Are there things that we can express non-verbally and connect across cultures more easily maybe than verbally? And for instance, how can we build on each other non-verbally? And to do this, we will sort of slowly move into that, where we use a few exercises to find your vocabulary and expand your vocabulary, and to start talking to each other in a non-verbal way. And I like to first show you a couple sort of qualities of movement that you can use to explore this vocabulary that you have. So that we can use that in the exercises. Then you have a little bit of inspiration, like, what else could I do? And of course, at any point in time, you can take inspiration just by looking at the screen, like, what's everybody else doing? Because we are now going to listen with our eyes more than we do with our ears, except when I'm explaining something. Unfortunately, I have not found a way yet to explain everything non-verbally. I guess I could do it with sign language for the deaf, but then you need to know language again. So what we will be playing with is different ways to move. And I take my inspiration from dance improvisation. And for me, dance is just moving with intention. So it's not necessarily, going all over the place, but even just deciding to move your hands from here to there. It's dance because you made a conscious decision to do that. And what we will be playing with is this vocabulary. And in the next exercise, we will use 2 different prompts to help you explore this area. One is change and the other is develop. So for instance, say I'm just moving my hand like this. If I develop this movement, I can, for instance, speed it up, go much faster. It's the same movement, but it's faster. Or I can really slow it down. Or I could make it, for instance, much bigger. Or I could develop it to become much smaller. Eventually, maybe it becomes a flat line. Or I could go from, for instance, very fluid motion to something that's much more square. So this is what I would call developing. You start with an idea of a movement and it sort of gradually changes to something else. And then when I'm talking about change, you try to create a contrast. So when I'm doing this and I change my movement, it becomes, for instance, doing this. Or I take another body part and start moving that. So to demo this a little bit, I'm going to stand up and then Elise will prompt me saying change or develop, and you just can take a little inspiration from that. And then we I will explain what we are going to do all together. And for now, I just start by moving my shoulder.
Develop. Develop. Change. Change. Develop. Change. Change. Develop. Change. And develop. Very cool.
So this is the idea for movement. And what we are going to do, I think Elise arranged us all on the same grid on your screen. So you should see me in the top left, and then Elise, and then Xiaoyu. Is that correct for everybody? Okay, thank you for the nods. That's also non-verbal confirmation. So I will start moving. I'm the leader, and you try to mirror in your own way. So do what you can. You move within your own ability. If you're not able for space or physical ability to follow, then you do your own interpretation of it. So I could be doing this, but maybe you just do something small with your hands. It's also okay. So you try to sort of mirror my movement. I'm the leader, I'm moving, and when I'm done leading, I can pass the movement to the next person on the screen. And I do this by making a very clear motion to the camera. So like throwing a ball, I pass it to Elise. And then Elise will be the leader, and we will follow Elise in our own way. And she can pass it on to the next person. And then when we have had everybody, so we are at Rabia, we are going to do another round. And we will do 3 rounds in total. The first round, the idea is that every next person tries to develop the movement of the previous person. So you take the movement from the previous person and you try to evolve that a little bit. In the next round, we are gonna do change. So you try to make a contrast with the movement of the previous person. And then in the last round, we explore moving freely. So you decide for yourself what you do with the movement. And we do this without music, so that you are really following your own impulse and you're not sort of forced by this external force that's driving you to jump up and down, so that you can be really intentional about your movement. And we try to do this without talking, unless there's confusion at some point. So let's start, and feel free to get up so that you have more space to move. So we start by developing, and I'm, for now, the leader. And I pass it to Elise. Elise catches the movement and she will continue to develop this. And Elise passed it to Xiaoyu.
So that's Trisha's, I think.
Yeah. And in this round, we are going to change the movement. So you try to create a contrast.
All the things in my back are cricking.
Great. That's already very good, I think.
Trisha, who's on her phone. Yep. Miriam, what's this round?
In this round, this is the final round, you're totally free to explore your own expression. So you can take a while, you can add some things. This is how I'm feeling right now. So try to express something of how you are in the moment. And I pass it to Elise.
It's later in the day for you.
Rabia, we cannot see anymore. So I think this is where we wrap it up. I'm taking back the movement. Thank you. For all your wonderful expressions. And I'd like to do what Elise just did, fist to 5. How enjoyable or interesting or horrible was this exercise for you? So on the count of 3, I guess. 0, horrible. 5, interesting, fun. 3, I don't care. So 1, 2, 3. I see a 6 and a 4.
It's a 1 and a 5. I don't know how to do that one.
Can you tell us more about that? The 1 and a 5.
Sure. 1, because my anxiety super through the roof that whole time, like bringing up all kinds of stuff, all kinds of body stuff, all kinds of performance stuff, all the things. And 5, because yeah, it was just it was new, it was unexpected, it was a different way of paying attention, a different way of like being embodied on a Zoom call, which I hate, which is why the 1. So it was all the things. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Is there anybody else who wants to share their experience?
I think, sorry.
Go ahead.
I think you can go ahead, show you.
Okay, I just think it's really fun because yeah, I like dance moves, and ever since high school, I've never actually danced anymore. So this is really nice. I really like it's like bringing me out of the comfort zone. Nice, thank you.
Sharon, did you also want to share?
Yeah, at first I was like, oh God, they're gonna make us get up. And then I just like, really? And it's and the directive stuff of like, get up and do this. And I'm just like, no, you can't make me. But it was interesting. And so I liked how you gave permission, how you could say, okay, you could just do whatever and do the small moves. And yeah, I can do that. And so it was that made it fun. And then giving an option of doing that, of not getting up, and because then if it's only the thing of getting up, then it leaves people feeling that they're being a party pooper. And so I really thank you for that. And then, but it was really fun. I had a lot of fun, and I ended up like really laughing hard with the thing that I was just like, oh, I'll do a fake laugh. And then it was like, and then I was like really laughing hard. So that was pretty cool.
I'm curious, did anybody else get surprised by how quickly they embodied other people's emotions in the mirroring? Like I felt Trisha's, whatever this exact, I wasn't sure if it was sadness or just I need to breathe. And Sharon, you made me laugh, and
I had that too. So this motion, by the way, I use this in dance. It resonates with me. I don't know if you use this in Zoom meetings, but yeah, what you say is resonating with me. And I every time I do this, I have done this before, I'm surprised about how connected it feels to me when people throw this movement at me and I catch it. It's like, yeah, there's really something passing through the screen.
I'd be curious to hear from the people who haven't spoken yet. What else did you notice about what's possible there or not possible?
I'll chime in. I think, the fact that it's just outside of the norm of what we normally do, just means that you pay attention a bit more. And, and even though it's nonverbal, you're tuned in on many different ways. So I was tuned in, by moving, but I was also tuned in visually to paying attention to what was going on, whereas in terms of verbal communication, maybe that's so much of the default of what we normally do that we kind of switch off the other things. So, we're only listening with our ears, we're not really paying attention with our eyes, and we switch off some of the other things and we get distracted because it's our default mode. So I think it's interesting, stepping out of that default norm, that I was tuned in on more than one level, not just in the movement that I was making, but also visually So I was paying much more attention. And I'll just echo some of Sharon's thoughts that I appreciate the variation in the instruction as well. You know, like you can get as big as you want with this or as small, because I mean, I guess for me, at first I was like, gosh, do I want to drop off? You know, I feel so self-conscious, and it's just not my comfort space, but your permission to kind of take it where you need to, whether you want to get big or small, or how much space you want to take up, was helpful as well. And it does warm people into what is an unusual activity. So I really appreciate that about it. So thank you.
Lovely. And with this, I pass it back to Elise.
All right. So now we want to take this one step further. You've already gone into small groups to meet each other. And we're going to go into small groups again, this time groups of 3. And we've explored a number of ways to communicate non-verbally. We've used hand signals, we've used chat, we've used movement. We want you to interview each other again. And I'm going to give you 3 minutes to think about this. So you've got some time to prep. The question is, a day of in your life, right? So from the moment you get up in the morning to when you go to sleep, kind of what is your journey of a day in your life? And in groups of 3, you're going to take turns telling other people about your day non-verbally, in whatever way works for you. When it's the other people are sharing, take some notes. What do you think about that person's day? What are you hearing when you listen without words? And then we're going to give you some time. So you just take a minute to share your day. It doesn't have to be long, doesn't have to be a big dance, doesn't have to be fancy. You'll each take a turn sharing, each write down some notes, and then you'll have some time to kind of compare and just kind of talk about that experience together before we come back to debrief it as a larger group. So right now I'm going to set a timer for 3 minutes, and we're just going to take 3 minutes in silence. Too much silence. I muted myself. That was silly. You're going to have 3 minutes in silence to consider what your day looks like and how you might want to share it. And that option is up to you, however you want to do that. So take 3 minutes to think it through. All right. So you're going to have 12 minutes together. Take turns sharing your story. And then after everybody's had a chance to share, have a short discussion. What did you see? What do you think the other people do? How do they feel about it? And then we will all come back and see what we've learned. Are we all good? Okay. Have fun. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. We are super curious to hear. Actually, I'll do the talking on this one. What did you learn that you can or cannot say non-verbally?
Netflix.
That it can or it cannot?
Cannot. I was like, so I put it in the chat. Cheated. So
I learned that a parent can say petted my cat, which I really wasn't sure about. I was like, I don't know, it's a fundamental thing. I have to go there, and I did. And Helen got it. So dog people might not get it, but that was really fascinating. Like what you were able to.
They would, because I'm a dog person.
Oh, okay, fair.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say thank you. I'm going to have to run. And I just wanted to share, there isn't much. I mean, I thought there wasn't much like that you couldn't say non-verbally, we all found different ways, and I just wanted to say thank you. I mean, one thing about this exercise that it really piqued curiosity, not being able to use words. So, watching other people or seeing what they were doing meant that I was really curious when we did talk to ask more about that. So it was a way of really inviting curiosity. So I just wanted to say thank you and share that. Apologies for being late and leaving early again to both Miriam and Elise and everyone, but thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Oh, that's fascinating, right? Like, here's a story, but now I need to know more about the story. What are some other experiences that came up that we're sharing?
I felt I might have learned more about what people, particularly when Rachel was doing hers, I felt I got more about how she felt about her activities of her day than she might have if she'd said them verbally. Because her face was just speaking volumes, like with what she was, even her getting up and all sorts of things. Like, and I also, conversely, like when I was doing my own, I think I learned a lot about how I feel about my own daily activities from communicating them non-verbally to somebody. I suppose because you have to make them bigger, a bit larger than life. Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Sorry, I just want to say I find I remember more about what other people are doing from seeing people's action. I think I'm a more visual learner than hearing things. So yeah, I think I remember more about others through this exercise.
Fascinating.
Yeah, it was sort of intellectually engaging in an unexpected way. I think that for me it relates to the being memorable. Like I had to sort of figure it out and do some like embodied empathy. I don't know if that's a thing, but like what is this? What could this be? And then there's sort of that like little micro dopamine hit of like, oh, I think I figured it out. That she's grinding coffee, she's making coffee, and both like having the affective experience resonate and then it's sort of like the joy and intrigue of figuring it out yourself help me at least find things more memorable for sure.
Well, Trisha used actually a string of emojis that were in the chat. And so in the beginning, I was just like, oh, we can do that? And then I thought, I could have done this long string of emojis and it would have made it really easy. But yeah, and I'm kind of, because we didn't have that in the group, then it was like, so I didn't get to see what you guys saw. I did my performance piece of my day, but I didn't get to see it from the perspective that you guys got to see it. And so that's really interesting. Yeah. So it makes me want to do it in a workshop so I can see it.
Nice.
Rabia, what was your experience?
So the reason Sharon Lee didn't get to see it is that I had to step out to handle something for my children because they have a class starting. And I know that when I was thinking about how to do my day, it was something that I have a hard time handling how to disclose about my day in particular, because I feel like women are trying to conceal their children. And so I was going to do something very, I guess, abstract, like with energy levels, so that nobody would see my children coming in and jumping on me in the first thing in the morning, or continuing to need help right as, because the turn of the hour when their things start is often a critical time in meetings because people are just trying to share the last bit of something. So it was interesting to see a more literally done day like Sharon Lee was able to. And so I'm just thinking about that from the same perspective of, how would I do something like that is both connecting, but also protective of what I don't want to share. So because it's a novel experience, so it's like, oh, it's a blank slate. How do I bring only the things that I want out? So, but it was a lot of fun to experience Sharon Lee's, because yeah, I feel like have been so productive today. I went through her whole day with her.
So
Oh, that's it.
listening to you, I really like how you talk about different, I think, levels of expression, like from really concrete objects to levels of energy throughout your day. It's like you can choose your own sort of, your own focus, your own level of detail or abstraction in your story. That's nice.
Was thinking about that actually, is it when you're doing it non-verbally, when you're trying to hit like you know, the events like you have 3 meals or whatever and you go to your computer, you have another meal, you go back to your computer, everything takes on the same significance and the same amount of time, you know, so it tends to, which is a complete distortion, you know, like if I had my, you know, my cup of coffee would be a split second compared to the time that you sit, you know, hammering away at the keyboard and on Zoom, but you can't really. Well, I suppose that would be the same verbally, wouldn't it? Yeah.
But it doesn't feel the same in real life, right? So when you're trying to feel it, express it, that contrast might be clearer.
I figured out during the thing, it was and I kept having these things. Oh, is that cheating? I kept asking myself that because I was like, well, how do you convey the time and the number of times that it's going through in the and so I just grabbed my phone and I was like, okay, here's the clock. Okay, this hour. and so I was like, it's all okay. So giving self permission to tell the story with the tools and the things that you can pull in, however you can pull it in, I think is interesting how it kind of manifested as I was still didn't figure out how to convey Netflix.
That's a great addition, the addition of props, drawing, right? We didn't draw together, but that would certainly be a possibility. It would be fascinating to evolve this with a group where they had gone through enough iterations that the mental cop got to quiet down. And if you want to write it in chat, you can. If you want to, you know, like the expression choice is really open. There were no rules.
Right. She didn't say it, but
although having just come from an activity that was very about like there was sort of a mindset that we were primed for, I think, of course. So spoken or unspoken. I just want to take a quick second and say thank you to Rabia for that insight, disclosure, like that. It's my thing was a cat, and I'm like, people can know I'm a cat lady, but it's just a word of appreciation for just elevating that that struggle and like finding your own boundary and naming it for yourself. Like part of me, like it evoked this like fury that it's a thing and respect that you're in control of the story that you tell about your experience. So I just want to take a moment to appreciate you for that.
Thank you. Yeah.
Very nice.
That's what I love about Elise's meetings. You know, there are opportunities to explore exactly this kind of membrane, you know, of what's coming in, what's going out.
So speaking of which, in our last 10 minutes, maybe 5, and then we'll close out. Miriam, do you want to create something?
Let's do a 5-minuter. Cooking it up on the spot and looping back to something that was mentioned along the way is about sort of resonating with someone else's emotion. That if someone really expresses sort of an emotion, that you can embody it and you can quickly connect to it. And I think, like in a workshop setting, there are 2 sides to it. One is you can use that embodiment of an emotion to invoke it in another participant, or you can connect with it to recognize the emotion. That if you see that, you know, there's something going on in the participant, maybe by embodying it, you connect with it more easily. So there's like a 2-way. And we were thinking that maybe we can do an attempt at establishing sort of an say an emotional dictionary, non-verbal emotional dictionary, where we explore a couple of emotions, and we take maybe, I don't know, 15, 20 seconds to a little bit feel into it, like how would you embody this? And then we take a screenshot. You freeze where it feels right for you. And then we take a screenshot to see the collective embodiment of that emotion. Is that clear what I have in mind? Oh yeah, and I think the invitation is to remain seated for this. So we are pretending to be in a workshop, which we are. So how would you embody that emotion in a workshop? So feel into it, you can move, feel into it. How would it, show up in you? And then we freeze and we take a screenshot. And I think I will just watch are you doing the screenshots, Elise?
What's awesome is I have the recording, so I can screenshot anything, but I'll happily screenshot. If you call the freeze,
okay.
I'll screenshot.
No, we just call the
We're doing
freeze.
it all at the same time. Sorry, are we all doing it at the same time?
Yes.
Or?
Yeah.
So as a group, we do one emotion, and then you feel a little bit. I say freeze, we freeze, and then we move to the next emotion.
So we're all doing the same emotion?
Yeah, and I'm giving you one. So for now, let's start with joy. Feel into joy. And it can also be a pose if you feel like it should be a pose. And freeze. And we move to sadness. And freeze. I don't want to keep you there for too long. We go to anger. You can also make sound, helps. And freeze. We will do fear.
What's with all the negative emotions?
I know.
We end with a positive.
Fear.
Freeze. Surprise. Freeze. And let's end with gratefulness. And I'm not going to say freeze. I like this ending.
So in terms of bookmarking emotions, we'll put these together and we can look and see if we think those are genuine and useful. But I think somebody pointed it out earlier, like they felt they learned more and they were more curious when hearing the story with your eyes. There are a number of meeting science research studies that will show you that, of course, the visual parts of the brain are by far the largest and the most complex. And things like introductions, if you have people introduce each other using visuals along with their story or their name, increase retention. So on teams like NASA teams, where they're building spaceships over the course of years, and they don't always meet every week, they will have people introduce each other using their story and something visual at the same time. And then when the teams come back 3 months, 6 months later, they actually remember each other's names. How cool is that? And then in terms of the emotional resonance, if you can get a group to move and embody and mirror each other, you invoke the mirror neurons, which are ways in which empathy happens in our bodies, right? So beyond noticing these things, do you have a group that you want to step into a place of delight? as they are working on a new product or a service for a client? Do you want a group that's trying to find their joy? Yeah. Rabia?
I have a question around that. So a thing that was coming up is how nice it would be to have a recurring group with which you could do this.
Oh, she froze.
You know, and cycle, because people are sort of already set in their expectations on, you know, what this is about and who these people are and what's supposed to happen in a meeting. Any tips on introducing some of these techniques into spaces where they haven't been expected before, and, you know, just in a neutral way to gain some interest and attention? I think Rachel kind of, or maybe Sharon Lee, it was you, or maybe it was all of us, said, oh God, are we going to have to do this thing? You know, even though we knew that that's what this meeting was about and we had signed up for it, we still have a little bit of, you know, uncertainty around it. So how about for folks that thought they were there to work on their checklists?
Yeah, and that's the thing of the neurodivergence as well, because the last exercise we just did of like conjuring up that's hard for me because I'm on the spectrum, and you know, and it's like as a kid, you know, it's like there's a practice of, you know, looking at emotions and learning the emotions. So I know it is a learned thing, and it's almost like a you know academic level of it. So asking me to do that is like, what? I have to like think about it and run through my library of like the memories of that. It's not, I mean, I feel them, but I don't know what they look like.
Right.
And so there's a lot of that with just this neurotypical stuff that everybody just generally just churns out in workshops. And I'm just like, okay, I'll go along with it, whatever. And then, but it doesn't really fit. And it's rare that people talk about it, you know, the things of you know, what that does to people. So, because you can pretty much guess it, everybody in your room, if you've got 10 people, there's probably somebody who's undiagnosed in the room.
Yeah.
And Sharon, I was just watching a video, the beginning of a video by Lisa Feldman Barrett, where she was talking that she was actually saying that, you know, she was showing pictures, look at this picture, look at this picture, what do you think they're expressing? And they were actually not at all expressing the emotion that we might have thought they were. Her daughter was expressing, oh, yum, this milkshake's gorgeous, and she looked really, really sad. And another little boy was expressing, oh my God, this ice cream is to die for, and he looked really angry. So, you know, even in a neurotypical world, I think we can misinterpret all the time.
Right.
So, yeah. But
I agree.
Well, I think that's going to be a fascinating thing in those screenshots, because we were not all doing the same thing.
No.
Yeah,
so,
you could see those.
So I'm going to, because of time and because of our facilitator hats, we're going to officially close on time, and then we're going to stay. And I want to answer that question. And continue the conversation for anybody who can stay. But we do two things to close. The first is from this session, as we share it with other people, what's the most important thing to share with someone who wasn't here today? And if you'd answer in the chat, that would be great. So folks who were not bold enough, brave enough to embrace the movement Unspoken Challenge, what's the insight that they should know? Thank you. Very cool. And then in the technical follow-up, again, if you don't have it open yet, that's where the feedback form is. All the detailed feedback goes to Miriam. The summarized feedback comes to the entire group. And then we do things all the time. They're all radically different. So please do join us again in the future. And thank you. So officially, technically done on time.
Yeah, thank you all.
But now let's talk about Rabia's question, if that's okay. So I think if you come in with a facilitator perspective, that's hard. That's easier, right? Because we're special occasion folks. I'm doing a workshop, and therefore you get this borrowed authority and you can introduce things. But in a situation that you're talking about, where you're dealing with a group that has expectations that are already set, the path towards introducing new things tends to look kind of like this. One, surface from them any points of dis-ease or lack in the current process. So given what we're doing right now, do we feel like we're bonded as a team? Do we feel like we're being as efficient and productive as we can be? Do we feel like we're really communicating clearly? Some of these things where connection and trust are required to be successful. You can just see, are we aligned? Do we, if you go back and look at, I actually haven't posted the recording, so it's going to be hard to look at, but Lindsay's recording on alignment, when you talk about what is our purpose and do they all say the same thing or not? Right. And you can just collect that as a simple bit of feedback. And if they're not all saying the same thing, then they're not able to hear each other. So identifying there being something that they also can feel as a missing or as an element is important, because if they think everything's fine and you want to change it, but they don't recognize that there's a problem, that's pretty tricky. Then, depending on your group, and I think do you work with like technical people?
I do. It's a mix of technical and business folks.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the face to the business folks tends to be one where it's I don't know, it's a little smoother, but then when I get back to the technical group that is having political problems caused by those same people they didn't just talk to properly, it's like, no, we don't have a problem, you have a problem. And so bringing that collective awareness back into the room of let's stay with what we are sharing, which is that there is a problem, not jump forward to, and it's you.
Right.
Is, these groups have a hard time staying there.
Mm-hmm. So if you can stay there, or just pause them there. With groups like that, it often tends to work best to say, hey, can we try an experiment? Here's the science, right? So knowing that it's evidence-based or science-based is important. And then here's a story about somebody famous that they admire or a team that they admire that did this thing. So when I train, I often use stories from high tech. I use stories from NASA. I use stories from the Navy SEALs or the military. Places. I use stories from professional sports. If I'm working in those worlds, if I'm working in the nonprofit world, if I'm working with academia, the stories shift. So you find the aspirational story, and what you will find is that the Navy SEALs meditate.
Yeah.
Right. The NASA uses pictures and open space, and they do movement-based work on their large projects. So they're out there. So those are the two things. Hey, let's try it as an experiment. If it doesn't work, no harm, no foul. Evidence, and both in story and science.
Your stories sound like a gold mine.
Handy, right?
Do you have a database or something? That would be great, right?
I wrote a book.
Yeah.
I'm writing another book. So
yeah. I think you could totally turn it into like a whole library of.
Yeah, and there are other people who also wrote books that are full of stories.
Yeah. Because you don't have to, like I use Brene Brown and some of these other people, and Luke Burgess, and what is it, David, the guy who wrote Range, David Epstein. And they've done all this work. It's like, I don't have to do the research. They're better. They're way better at that than I am. I'm way too lazy. And so it's like I can lean on their research and pull from them and say, David said, Brene Brown said, and so that's super useful.
Yeah.
But I do admit, now that I'm 60, it's like I know some shit, and it's like, and you get the gray hair, and you say stuff, and people are like, oh, she must know. I'm like, wow, you know. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, something to look forward to.
And actually, it's another tip, right? So if you have an executive as far up as you can go who will model and do the introduction for you, you know, so oftentimes it's talking to the senior leader and saying, hey, I'm noticing this. Do you notice that too? I was just at a thing with the world's foremost expert on whatever, and I saw this thing. Could we try it? You know, can be, and then they get credit, which makes them happy. So, put a link in the chat. That's Andrew Huberman runs a podcast. And if you're looking for people to borrow authority and credibility about latest how things work in the brain and how they impact it, he's very much about individual performance, but if you can extend it to groups, it's chock-a-block full of handy stuff.
That's great. Thank you, Elise. You know, I'm usually careful with this because I have psychotherapy training, and so you know, my teams know that when they figure it out. But I really like the idea of coupling it with those contexts that feel more familiar, you know, like you said, folks who meditate, Seattle Seahawks meditate, right? And so bridging those worlds in a way that makes sense to them might really do a lot. Thank you. That was great.
Cool. Other final questions or comments before we?
I just want to say I really enjoy this event, and I hope there are more of them in school at university for the PIs to join, the supervisors, because I find I'm much open to talking in this group than in my research group, which it took me a year to feel comfortable talking to them. So I feel like if the supervisor learned the ways to get us talking to each other more, it would be really helpful to improve my community and the people I work with.
I will take that suggestion and put it on my ideas list as I'm exploring how I can, you know, service science and other communities.
Yeah, thank you. That would be really lovely.
Well, and if you just listened to there, you just heard a fabulous business case. Because she talked about a year of held back contributions.
Yeah.
Right? That's incredibly expensive and incredibly wasteful from a leadership perspective. So leaders should be highly motivated to ensure that when they get pulled teams together, those teams are actually surfacing everything they have, you know, so everybody feels comfortable, you know, being as contributory as possible. That's a huge deal.
Yeah, and I think it's a big market in science. There's a lot of I would say old-fashioned meetings and power structures that block easy flow of ideas and contributions. Yeah.
I managed a library for 5 years, and I went and trained in I can't remember, it's quite a group facilitation. I've forgotten the name of the guy, but technology participation or something. I've forgotten. The guy's retired now. It was a really brilliant training, and then I started to use it with my teams at all the meetings. The person who'd been absolutely completely silent for 5 years had the most, you know, valuable things to contribute. Once I was able to do that, and that's why I wanted to come today, because everything's online now. I'm not a librarian anymore, I'm a hypnotherapist, but I want to work with groups, and it's how do I apply what I used to know in a room to online, you know. So I probably came across you possibly through Judy Reese. I'm not sure, who's doing so much great stuff in that. Martin Gilbraith actually was one of the guys who was training in my facilitation, but the other guy, I've forgotten his name. But yeah, but I really enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I've found that it was more of a confirmation of what I've known, but during the pandemic, it definitely was confirmed that the things that happen in breakout rooms, that you can carry them over into real life and get people in an intimate, break them up, get them out of the big group, because the introverts and all the gold, that's there. And so if you get people one-on-one and you have a couple really good questions, and they talk and then they come back and then you switch and you keep doing it. And it's just the best. And you can do it in real life as well, instead of bringing everybody back and then making them sit in one room and talk at them. But the engagement of talking with each other is super powerful. And I'm really happy that it's one of the major opportunities from coming out of COVID, is that people now have actually experienced that. Whereas before they were like, no, we don't want to do that. And come to find out, everybody's just hungry for it. The connection in these little private moments. And it doesn't take a lot of time, but it's super important.
Thank you, everybody. You've all shared something vulnerable and brave. Each and every one of you brought a brave perspective. I really appreciate that. It's a gift to each other, and it's a gift to me for sure, and to everybody who wasn't here to have this opportunity. So thank you so much for joining us today and for playing.
Yeah, thank you very much for being brave, stepping into this space of nonverbal experimentation. Yeah.
Thank you, Miriam, for encouraging us to dance. I would never have personally scheduled this, and I love that we did it. So
okay, great. I'm happy to hear that.
Thank you for hosting a fun session.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
So much. Thank you. All right, folks. Well, have a fabulous rest of your day, week, and hopefully we'll see you again in the future.
Thank you.
Okay.
And it's very nice meeting you, Miriam. I'm so happy.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.